the problem had arisen, but now we've worked it out, so don't worry.
User error.
That's fine. Kirsty, unfortunately, Joshua's ill and isn't able to join us today, but I'm here in all ears, and it's very good to talk to you. And I assume
Very good.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, very good to talk to you, and I've got Anita Venugopal here with me, who is the JLL Head of Talent for Asia Pacific. Hi, hello, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Anita. Very nice to meet you. When did you move over, Kirsty? When did you leave Perpetual?
I left at the end of June.
Yes.
And we flew to Singapore on the Monday, and I started on the Wednesday. So I think this is day 11.
Wow. Well, you have to be a really great diversity and inclusion champion if on day 11 as the HR, chief HRO, you are pushing this agenda. So it's good news.
Absolutely. And it's a priority for our CEO as well, who is relatively new in role. He's a guy called Anthony Kaus, that's the correct way of pronouncing it. He just took over as a regional CEO about a year ago.
Yes.
He's a JLL veteran, has spent most of his career in China, actually.
Fascinating.
Running the Shanghai business for us, yeah.
Yes. And so where is he based? Is he still based in Shanghai, or is he in Singapore with you?
He's moved to Singapore, which is the sort of the regional hub for us. So here in Singapore, we have the Singapore business itself, but also a lot of the regional roles.
So let me throw the ball into your court completely, Kirsty, and sketch for me, what does this organization look like? You've got a CEO who sees this as a priority. What led you to contact us?
Okay, what led me to contact you? Well, I was thinking a lot about you in my early days because I think that the work that I've seen from you had a very strong personal impact, and I think that we could really start to think about diversity and inclusion in a different way. So JLL is a very well-established organisation in real estate. We have strong heritage from a UK perspective, so we grew out of a company called Jones Lang Wootton in the UK, which has got steeped in history. And the LaSalle part of the business is actually US, and that's more the investment business. And they came together in the 1970s, I believe, to form Jones Lang LaSalle. We recently rebranded to JLL, although we're still registered as Jones Lang LaSalle. 77,000 people globally. We are in the real estate globally.
I didn't catch that number. How many?
77,000.
77,000. That's large. Yes. Globally. Yes.
Yeah. And essentially, what we do is everything to do with real estate. So, if you wanted to commercial real estate and residential real estate, but mainly on the commercial side. So, if you wanted to buy a shopping mall or a office building, we would help find that. We'd negotiate the deal for you. We could even give you the financing structure around that, enable that. And then, so that might be it. Then we might act on your behalf as the landlord and find you tenants, or we may fit out that building for you. And that's everything from the look and feel, the design, the whole workspace, workplace is something that we're very, very active in as well. That whole people experience, right through to providing the security guard, the receptionist, the man who presses the button when you get into the lift, all of those kind of things.
So I'm very interested, Kirsty. That's pretty much an end-to-end service in the property industry because you can provide the funding and investment as well. How many of your competitors provide such an end-to-end service? Aren't most of them specialized in a niche aspect?
I think our biggest competitor, CBRE, is pretty much in the same space.
Yes,
And we
CBRE.
always run neck to neck, in terms of the services that we provide.
Yes.
There's constant pressure now to innovate and look at new ways of providing services. And a lot of that has to do with technology and digitization.
Yes.
And that's the kind of narrative that that is really popular as well in JLL currently. How do we sort of build a competitive edge based on digitization and workplace for the future?
So there's huge pressure to innovate. The industry is being very disrupted, would you say?
Definitely. It is a traditionally, set up industry and is viewed as such as well. So, how do you sort of just move away from that and cause of the culture so that we get that edge and that advantage?
So what are the forces of disruption, Anita? You've mentioned technology. How is technology disrupting your industry? Can we start with that?
Basically, again, what I've heard is just the way we contact our clients, or the way you might actually even get leads today, right? Everything it's such a linked up world.
Yes.
We are an organization that is so based on relationships and stakeholders. While today you're moving into a very, very connected world. So how do you sort of both need to coexist? So how can you use technology in that space? And the other one, again, what I've heard a lot about is the workplace itself. As Kirsty was saying, we provide end-to-end solutions. So in a workplace, how can technology sort of enhance your workplace experience? How can technology actually enhance productivity? That is like a big area that that we need to. We are in the process of exploring, and JLL wants to be a leader in that. If you take a Google for an example, and if you look at their workspace here in Singapore, it's like this. It's like being on a different planet altogether.
Yes.
I think we were sort of instrumental in creating that for them, from what I've heard. It's a totally different experience that you give employees. So we actually help to enhance employee well-being and productivity.
And
so it's a different way of approaching the whole the real estate business and relationships.
And is that vision to create a completely different workplace experience?
Yes.
Is that a vision that's internal and external? You want to create it for JLL, and you want JLL to create it for its customers?
Well, we want to do both, but sat here in this JLL office right now in Singapore, this is not the leading edge office that I'm sat in at the minute with, and I think the CEO is a little embarrassed by that and would hold out this Shanghai office as a shining example.
Yes.
But absolutely, we it's an offering for our customers and clients, but equally we want to reflect that internally. But
yes.
that is very much a journey for us. I think from a digital point of view, what isn't impacting us, interestingly, is the rise of the online platforms. So I'd made an assumption that the rise of online shopping, for example, and the purchase of services would mean that there'd be less demand for bricks and mortar.
Yes.
And that's actually proving not to be the case.
That's interesting.
But what is the case is people are still going to shopping malls, but they're actually going for different reasons. So there's a whole food and beverage experience around, going to the shopping mall that used to be predicated on which shops are in there in retail, but now that people are actually looking for a different experience. And understanding, who's going to those shopping malls at what time to do what sort of things. All of that information has a real power for us.
Yes.
The other aspect of digital disruption for us is a lot of our businesses, let's say in India, have been very heavily reliant on BPO, so customers putting large processing centres in various parts of India. That's certainly gone off. Well, the pace of growth is definitely slowing.
Yes.
Some people are talking about the Trump effect there and the fact that, it's American jobs for American, keep it all onshore. But actually the biggest driver there is digital disruption. So the traditional jobs that used to go to India are no longer going to India because they've been automated.
So I can see that there's a lot of digital disruption. Are there other forces of disruption in your industry that are impacting on JLL?
Well, we talk about being multi-generational. So we have a significant part. We almost have a senior workforce, I think, that's been here typically for a very long time. Yeah. So most of my peers have been here for 20 odd years.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, a significant proportion of our workforce, and in particular our workforce in China and India, is millennial.
Yes.
And we don't seem to have much in the middle, actually. Yeah. It's quite interesting. So I think that in itself is an interesting dynamic to explore, and how do we sort of think about that?
Yes.
We know that, the workforce expectations are perhaps different, and we need to embrace that. We're also very conscious here in Asia Pacific. We have a very heavy reliance. So there's 36,000 people in JLL in this region in Asia Pacific.
Wow, that constitutes about half your company. That's about half the company. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And about half of the folk here in Asia Pacific, roughly, are in, let's just call it sort of the facilities management side of things.
Yes.
So it's those security guards, it's the tea ladies, it's a very heavy proportion towards that type of workforce. It's a business that's got relatively low margins.
Yes.
So we're continually looking at how do we think about workforce. Do we have to employ all of those people? Is there a different way of doing it? Is there a different? So we have to innovate all the time around how are we going to look at this workforce. Right now we employ them all. I'm not sure that that's going to be sustainable.
Yes.
When we look at our growth trajectory.
Yes. So that's interesting. So the two main forces that I'm hearing you talk about of disruption so far, technology and the multi-generational factors. Are there any others? Because what's becoming apparent to me, and it explains why you're thinking so much about diversity, Kirsty, is because of the strong link we make between diversity and innovation. And clearly there's a lot of emphasis upon the need to and demand for JLL to innovate if it's going to continue with its very good growth trajectory.
That's exactly right. And I was thinking very much around your dialogue and your insights around performance as well. And I've also been thinking about it because we are a federation. So whilst there is JLL, we are very federated from a funding perspective, who holds what budget, to processes, to technology. So each country is different, and then within each country there's different business lines. People are quite narrowly focused. Let's just take, for example, from a REM point of view, sometimes on their city. So the MD of Beijing is pretty much paid on the performance of Beijing, and which is good because it gives focus and clarity.
Yes.
But our clients are, I think, expecting, certainly the global clients, more of a holistic view when they interact with us. So one of the things that was going around in my head was how can we use this as a way of leveraging and mobilizing and linking to our work on one client, client-centric work, and thinking about one JLL as well.
Yes, well, that's really interesting because, and maybe for the benefit of Anita, I should express this, because you've heard me say this, Kirsty, but maybe it's something that would be helpful for you, Anita. Anita, our whole approach towards diversity and inclusion is that this agenda is really all about positioning an organization to leverage differences, no matter what those differences are, to optimize performance, growth, and innovation. That there's a host of empirical research out there which shows that if you leverage diversity effectively, and that's diversity of thought, diversity, personality differences, not only the demographic diversity, not only gender, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, disability, those kinds of diversity. But also if you generate diversity of thought and personality differences, there's a host of empirical research which shows that this will optimize performance and innovation. And what the research also shows is that it's no good just saying, well, I'm going to bring all that diversity in, or look at my organization, it's great, we've got a lot of diversity. It's about the success comes from embedding an inclusive culture. If your leaders are equipped with the ability to behave in an inclusive manner, then you can really access all the value that diversity has to add. But until you've created that inclusive culture and you've equipped the leaders with those capabilities, you won't get any value from it. It might be there, or you might work hard to bring it in, but you won't get the value. And when we talk about equipping leaders with inclusive behavior, it's very different to the kind of inclusive behavior we were talking about in the past century. So, Anita, I'm not in the room with you. I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you're a Gen Y or a veteran or a baby boomer, or a Gen X. But if you've been around for some time, you'll know that historically, when we spoke about inclusion, what people were really referring to was, did you have a bunch of leaders who showed respect for difference, who had a bit of integrity about their own difference, who had a bit of cross-cultural, cross-generational, cross-gender savvy, who'd value difference in that way. And that's what we used to mean when we spoke in the last century, when we spoke about a leader who was inclusive. But today, because there's such an inextricable link established between diversity and innovation, we define an inclusive leader much, much more broadly today. It includes all those things that I just said, engaging with difference, valuing difference, having integrity about difference, having a bit of cross-cultural and cross-generational savvy. But it also means that you have to equip your leaders with the skill to leverage the value that diversity has to add. And what does that mean? That means a leader is only defined as inclusive if they know how to leverage diversity of thought, if they know how to run an inclusive meeting, if they know how to promote cross-divisional collaboration, cross-functional collaboration. It's what we call boundary spanning. And that's just what you've been talking about, Kirsty. You're saying to operate as one JLL, we have to have all these leaders who are heading their businesses understanding that it's actually one business, and the cross-functional, cross-divisional, cross-geographical collaboration, the boundary spanning, is going to be key to optimizing our performance, because that's what our global clients want. You have to have leaders who know how to embed enough psychological safety so that people who come in with different perspectives actually feel it's safe to express their diversity of opinion, to rock the boat, to disagree, to bring in diverse and new and different ideas, and not just suppress them because their leaders, don't have the skill to deal with all these divergent views. And you ultimately have to have leaders who can drive this agenda, have the narrative to drive this agenda that diversity and inclusion will actually optimize performance and innovation. So I know I've been speaking a lot, but I thought it might just be important to set that context for you, Anita, because I think that's what Kirsty's responding to now. With the brief introduction you've given to us about the challenges that face JLL to optimize itself into the future, it's obvious that what's driving it is this narrative that it's about leveraging diversity to optimize innovation. Does that help?
Right. So as you were talking, you could not see us nodding, to everything that you were saying, because it makes so much sense in terms of what we are looking at. And just to give you a little bit of context around the diversity initiative that we've been running in Asia.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, the diversity initiative is about roughly 3 years. We started the BNI initiative 3 years ago, and the initial focus was around gender.
Yes.
And again, this is something that Kirsty mentioned is passionate about, and he was the chair for this initiative. And there were a lot of countrywide initiatives that were run to create awareness around gender diversity, and we had run unconscious bias programs across the region.
Good, excellent.
Okay. To create that awareness.
But very important, yeah.
From the time that it started to So even now, it's seen as a little bit of an HR initiative because HR is pushing the agenda.
Okay.
After the first year, we had a discussion with the regional. And I can share more about how the D&I groups is set up and more details about what we've done. But at a high level,
Yes.
after the initial first year, the D&I group and Anthony, who was the chair, and HR sort of sat together to look at how do we take this forward? What do we need to do?
Yes.
So we felt like we needed to expand the scope of the D&I initiative from gender
Yes.
to other significant areas. So we looked at geography and we looked at generation.
Yes.
And when I say geography, I do mean like cultural diversity.
Okay.
So we came up with the 3 Gs.
We love a good bit of branding at
A bit of
JLL.
branding.
You did a bit of branding. What were the 3 Ds?
Gender, generation, and geography.
Okay, gender,
And,
generation, and geography. That's quite clever, the 3 Gs, yes.
Yes, and then it was all, it's sort of, inclusion is at the heart of it.
Yes.
So that was our
Yes.
whole branding around it. So we came up with this strategy and, we went into implementation mode. Each of our markets had to come up with their individual plans in terms of how they would go about creating, again, awareness and initiatives around driving the narrative and the message around the
Yes.
CGs
Yes.
and inclusion. I think where, when Kirsty came in and what we've been sharing with her,
Yes.
primarily is like a couple of things. One, the ownership around diversity, right? Yes, of course, we run it as the HR function, but
Yes.
the business needs to see the value in it. It needs to be linked to our strategy, to our objectives, and it needs to sort of, exactly what you were saying, right? It can drive so many things around innovation, around performance.
Yes.
But that's not how we look at it now.
Yes.
How do we actually talk about the value that this brings?
Yes.
Diversity of thought, and
Yes.
how as leaders can they buy into that and then help drive that forward. And this diversity needs to be part of our daily fabric, our overall fabric as an organization.
Yes.
And
Yes.
only then can we see that, real progress.
Yes.
That's where we are sort of, we're at that phase now. So I was going through your website and you mentioned something that really resonated, where you said, it's seen as a side activity in a lot of organizations. How do you sort of make it core and mainstream? And that's exactly where we are today. It's a side activity. There is a lot happening anyway, but for it to have a real impact is where we want to take it.
Sorry, Anita, I just missed what you said. Would you mind repeating that?
I was just saying the last part was that, I was going through your website and where you mentioned that, in a lot of organizations, diversity is seen as a side activity.
Yes.
And and that's the situation we are in now.
Okay.
And we need to help change that narrative, get our leadership to actually see the value in doing this so that they can become diversity champions.
Yes, yes.
And it becomes mainstream, not a side activity.
Yes, and I
that's where we are.
I think Anita, probably the timing is very good here, because what you're saying is that you're not absolutely new kids on the block. It's not that you've never touched this agenda. It's that what you've done is you've laid the foundation. You've done the groundwork by raising some awareness about demographic diversity issues and about diversity as a social justice issue. And maybe that work that you've done over the last 2 or 3 years has laid a good foundation so that you can now flip the switch and you can talk to your leaders about diversity shifting from a social justice issue to a strategic business imperative. And what we need to do, if you engage us to work with you, would be how do we develop a strong narrative which demonstrates specifically in your industry and across the Asia Pacific region why diversity and inclusion is now a strategic business imperative. And the links are obvious. I mean, we've already been making them in this conversation, haven't we? But it would be going a little bit more empirical than that. And I suppose you've set the foundations. I'm interested to ask you a few questions. How many countries do you actually operate in? These 33,000 people, where do they sit?
16 countries in Asia Pacific.
15 countries. And in every country, and is that more or less evenly divided? So you have about 2,000, or do you have some real big hubs?
Yeah, the big hubs are basically China and India.
China,
and then some of the other, China and India are the big markets, and then we, as Kirsty mentioned, Singapore's regional headquarters.
Yes.
And we have significant presence in Japan and in Australia as well.
In Japan,
and then we have other small markets, Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam.
Right. So in those five main areas, are you telling me that in all the countries they've been doing something, or has the work mainly been done in your five main hubs?
The main hubs.
In the main hubs.
Main hubs, but I think that we just by way of an example, we've got a diversity week coming up in September.
Yes.
Which is around the gender, geography, and generation.
Yes.
I went through all of the plans, and everybody from Malaysia through to Indonesia has put a program together. So even the smaller locations are doing it, right down to us engaging with Sri Lanka, which I think has got all of 4 people there.
Great. Yes.
So we are. The HR team has the content. I have to say, I've been really impressed with. I would say the level of engagement, though, seems to be with our diversity and inclusion teams in country. A layer that's missing for me, and this is where, hopefully when we can work on our action plan, it's actually the country heads are a bit missing in action.
Okay.
So Anthony's direct reports are not engaged in this. It's absolutely, to Anita's point, something that we're doing on the side.
Yes.
But without them, and that's a red flag for me.
Yes. And rightly so, Kirsty, because what has he got, about 16 country heads or 13? How many?
There's a country head in every market.
Yeah, country head in every market, but Anthony's direct reports, we sort of tend to aggregate it up. Yeah. So Japan will cover Korea, we've consolidated Greater China. So we've essentially got Australia, Greater China, Japan and Korea, India, and Singapore, Southeast Asia. So we sort of roll it up on that basis.
Okay, so you've got these 5 direct reports to Anthony. And what you're saying is these 5 direct reports, these country heads, they're not seen as active champions of the diversity and inclusion agenda. And I suppose that's because in your first few years, it's been positioned as a social justice issue rather than a strategic business imperative. And I assume that what you're wanting to do, Kirsty, is to elevate it as a strategic business issue and get the full weight of their interest behind it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so far, I think in the past, Anthony and I think the previous HR head, they have shared, information around the diversity initiative. They've tried to get the country heads interested.
Yes.
But, again, each of them has their own view on the value that brings. So it's continued to be an HR initiative.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what we want to change.
We want to change that dialogue and to paint a picture, think crisp white shirts, smart ties and cufflinks.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And you're telling me that's the picture of the team? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Kirsty and Anita, what is your thinking about the way forward? What are the thoughts that you've had? Based on this is a preliminary discussion, so. I think that the first thing you're saying is that in order for this process to get real momentum in the business and to become positioned as a strategic business imperative, we have to find a way to work together with Anthony and his direct reports, and maybe the next level down, I don't know, you need to tell me whether that's right or not, to get them together in one place where we can really shift their thinking. The kind of thing that I did with the Exco of Perpetual.
Yeah, sorry, what was the last sentence again? Sorry, could you just repeat that?
I said the kind of thing that Kirsty knows that I did with the Exco of Perpetual. Perpetual had also been quite advanced in the diversity and inclusion agenda, but what the diversity team and the HR director really wanted me to do was to come in and change the thinking of the leaders about this agenda so that they would put their weight behind it and invest properly in it. that it wouldn't just be seen as a series of do-good initiatives.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right, and I think we've got a couple of opportunities coming up. So, and I haven't mentioned this to you, so just forgive me, Anita, but we've got an event coming up for our newly promoted regional directors. So there's an opportunity there. But Anthony's direct reports, which is called the Asia Pacific Strategic Team, the APST, will be getting together in October. And that could be a good opportunity between now and then to sort of help build that narrative with Anthony and for us to sort of use that time that we're together as a team. I think we're in Shanghai.
Yeah.
As a way of working with them. And to be honest, my thinking's not progressed much beyond that.
Yes. And so that would be those newly promoted regional directors, that APX team, is that what you call them? That consists of how many people? Is that 6, Anthony and 5 others? Or is it broader than that?
It will be a larger group, all to about 10, 15 people.
Yeah, the regional directors, then the newly promoted regional directors, so that's a team of about
36 people.
That's 36 people.
And APST will all the IT, everybody.
Yeah, so APST will be...
I put 10, 15 people.
10 to 15 people. Yeah. So it's Anthony's direct report.
And extended.
Plus an extended group, so the CIOs there and a few other people. Yeah.
Excellent. So it comes to about 36 people. That's a good size. Those are
2 separate meetings. So there's the regional directors event, and then the APST is getting together in October.
So what we're doing is, since the APST is getting together in the end of October, and we were planning to have the regional directors conference, we decided to let a one-day overlap between these 2 events, so we can get the APST to actually, be present in the in the regional directors conference as well. So the APST meeting is before the RD conference.
Okay, so the APX team is meeting before the regional directors conference.
That's right.
And that group...
And the APST, the key stakeholders, our customers, so to speak, on this.
Yes. And that group of 36 is excluding the APX team.
Yes, that's right.
And the APX team, if I remember correctly, you said is about 6 people, correct?
But I think you'll have at least 10 people, because apart from Anthony's direct report, there's also an extended team that that get invited.
Okay, the CIO and all of that.
But I can find out exactly.
Okay, so that's really interesting, and you're saying they would all be gathered in Shanghai in that time. So Kirsty, I'm interested in whether you feel, and Anita, whether you feel that what you would want to be doing is bringing the APX team on board with this new thinking prior to presenting it to the regional directors, or whether you believe you could do it almost simultaneously.
I think we'd have to do the APST first,
yes,
to bring them on that journey. I'm certainly planning on being a little bit more... I guess with this stuff, which is, as you called it, the sort of what terminology did you use about it being a social justice type activity?
Yes, shifting from
certainly looking to be a little bit more maybe forceful with the APST over the coming weeks, because I'm not seeing them engaged in the diversity week, for example. So I'm going to be inserting myself and kind of saying, come on, guys, a little bit, why not?
Yes.
What's going on here? So certainly need to be pushing that sort of thing. But, it would be great if we could perhaps get you to spend a little bit of time with Anthony on the phone, hopefully formalise this. And then in the weeks in the run-up to the APST, formulate some sort of agenda or plan or some thinking to work with them on, and then we come face to face in October.
And we can share what we've done so far.
Yeah.
And we can share what we've done so far, Heather, so you get the context of where we are with.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I understand what you're saying. This is a process of evolution. What you'd really like me doing is to get Anthony on board, work with him, cultivate, his thinking around this. so that by the time we get to the APXT, he's fully on board himself and wanting his APXT to move in the same direction as him. He appears to have always been a leader, and it's about positioning him to lead JLL, again, but in a slightly broader and more powerful direction on this agenda.
I think so, because Anthony has all of the passion, but it is very much in that sort of social justice, lens.
Yes.
He's got a particular passion around generational diversity, and I'm looking to sort of leverage that and take it, as you say, to that sort of that next level of innovation, leadership, inclusive leadership, all of those topics.
Yes. This is something we can certainly do together. I think this would be really a wonderful way to work together. Your long-term objective, from what I'm understanding, Anita and Kirsty, would be that you want to position, if I try to articulate from this discussion, because we're just talking about the first steps, right? Is that your long-term objective is really to position JLL to start leveraging diversity as something which is going to optimize performance, growth, and innovation. And you're saying the first step in this journey that we have to take is to get the power of the leadership, the business leaders behind this. And once we've got the power of the business leaders behind this, we can translate this and cascade it downwards in a different way across all your countries.
Yep.
Is that right? So that ultimately, what one can achieve, Anita and Kirsty, is if you achieve this, then you take if yes, let's say we reach the point where you get the buy-in from the leadership that this is something that will optimize performance and growth, then probably the next step you want to take is build your strategy, your diversity and inclusion strategy around that to help achieve that objective. And that would mean looking at how you can build the inclusive leadership capability of your take all these leaders and build their inclusion capability, give them those skill sets that I've been talking about, right? Give them those broader skill sets on how to behave in an inclusive manner, cascade that into the different countries. One of the things I want to tell you about, which might be very useful for you to know, is besides all the face-to-face work that we do, Kirsty and Anita, we've got a wonderful online tool where we take all our world-class content, what you might do in your face-to-face workshops, for example, with your more senior leaders, and we put that into our online training tool. And so it means we could get this out to your 16 countries by sending messaging on diversity and inclusion as a strategic business issue and the skills that are required out to all those countries online. So I'm not saying to substitute what you do face to face, but it means that concept of one JLL, where every second month you could be sending a 10-minute learning bite on diversity and inclusion, which says, which is about diversity as a strategic business issue, and then about how it impacts on innovation, and then what it means to behave in an inclusive manner. All that stuff, we could customize that and provide it so that you could use it across all those countries. Get consistent messaging out there.
Sounds great. Yeah. So one thing that might be helpful for you, Heather, is that we have a very talented lady as part of Anita's team called Holly Nicol, who has helped put a lot of this content together. It might be useful if we could ask Holly to send Heather some of the material that we've created and some of those YouTube videos, just so you can get a sense of us, because one thing that's incredibly powerful at JLL is the culture.
Yes.
It is overwhelming in its positivity. The EVP is an absolute reflection of who we are as an organisation. So we talk about having a talent for talent. We talk about being entrepreneurial. We talk about a number of things, and it's an absolute gift what this organisation has. If we could, I said this to Anita yesterday, if we could put it in a bottle and sell it, it's very special.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So there's a lot of great things to work with here. But in terms of just, I'm just conscious of time and just being clear on next steps.
Yes.
I think what we need to do is work together so that we've got a proposal for Anthony in terms of that run up to getting the APST together,
Yes.
which Anita, Heather, I'd rely on you to sort of let us know what that looks like and should look and feel and shape be, but something to happen when we're together at the APST in October.
Yes. Okay, excellent. Well, I think the way to achieve that is the next steps would be if you would ask Holly to send me whatever you've done to date on diversity and inclusion, your strategy, if there isn't a strategy, then your policy statement, your initiatives, what's planned for Diversity Week. Just give me a great sense and feel of what that's all about. And if you wouldn't mind over and above that, Anita, I don't know whether it would be you who would provide that for me, but if you would provide me just with the other broader corporate contextual things, like what are the values of JLL, how is your culture defined, this entrepreneurial spirit and all those things that define what your culture is, that background as well. Then I think based on that, what I would like to do is I would like to put together a provisional proposal on how we could work towards doing what you're asking for, Kirsty. How we could work towards getting Anthony on board, working together with both of you, and building something which we could eventually deliver at the APXT in Shanghai in October.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I'll, work with Holly in terms of, setting across all the material that we have so far on diversity and also on our EVP, on our values, behaviors, which will help you understand the culture of the company a bit more.
Terrific.
And then, happy to get onto a call if you would like to discuss that further.
Yes, I probably would. I think before sending you a proposal, I probably would like to have a second conversation with both of you, if you have the time, Kirsty and Anita, because I think that what I do want to do is give you a broader view whilst we're talking about these first steps. Maybe what I do want to achieve with you is a sense of what does this long-term journey look like? This is the first steps, and let's rather look at the big picture and then agree on what those first steps would be. Would you agree? Does that make sense?
That absolutely works for us. That really resonates. Because there's multiple linkages to make here with our leadership, our broader talent strategy as well. We've got issues on succession. We've got holes all over the place, haven't we? So there's a much broader context that we're thinking about as well, and this will play a huge part in that.
Good. And I think that's very important because we all know that embedding an inclusive workplace culture will not only help you attract the best diverse talent, it will help you retain it. So if you've got a whole thing about succession planning and talent management, that's key. And of course, if you're looking at how you're building leadership capability, well, inclusive leadership is a critical component of that in the 21st century. So it might inform and influence how you're going to build inclusive leadership as a critical component of your whole leadership development program.
Absolutely. And we are for the first time about to sort of embark on an integrated talent strategy, which Anita has worked with the global talent community and the global head of talent. And there's a very strong piece around inclusion in there as well. So we're very reflective, I think, of what's going on globally. And certainly had the feedback from my boss that Asia Pacific is very much leading the way, even if we're in the social justice phase, but we are leading the way.
That's wonderful. That's great news. So let's keep you ahead of the pack. That's wonderful.
I like to be ahead of the pack.
That's terrific. All right, look, so give me, I think I have a time frame here because we ultimately need to be well positioned and have had many conversations with Anthony long before October. So I think to keep the ball rolling here, I'll wait to get all this documentation from you. I think that I will spend some time synthesizing it, thinking it through, and then ask for another call with you and maybe send you what I call like a visual map of things, which we can use as a talking point for our next discussion. And then once we've spoken through that and we think we've made all the right linkages, we can then talk about putting something to paper, which can be a proposal that you can take to Anthony, coupled with a conversation with him. What do you think?
Sure, sounds good.
Does that sound good? Okay.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent. Wonderful. So good to speak to you both and look forward to taking the conversation forward.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.